Clive Barker Podcast Audio Commentaries.
Thanks to your generous donations to our Kickstarter funding campaign,
Clive Barker Podcast presents Fundraiser 4.
Welcome. This is Clive Barker Podcast presents Fundraising Inferno 5. This is one of our stretch goals. Actually, no, it's from 4. It was from Fundraising Inferno 4 that we were going to do the audio commentary for this movie, and it just, we couldn't do it because we didn't have it. The movie didn't come out until just recently.
Yeah, it just kept getting, delayed, and finally, in February 13 of this month, just one day short of Valentine's Day, is going to be the official release date for Hellraiser Judgment.
Yeah.
But somehow we all have the movie already, so
yeah, it's like Amazon just said, "Oh, we don't give a crap. We've got the movie. We're just going to sell it."
It's almost like they received a box and they were like, "Well, just ship them. We'll send the rest once we get the other boxes."
Yeah, it's not like Harvey Weinstein's going to go, hey, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Interesting enough, Harvey Weinstein's name is absolutely absent from this release.
Wow.
In the end, the only person that the only one of the brothers that Gary Tunnicliffe thanks in the end is Bob Weinstein. So, Yep. Harvey's going to be erased from history, I guess.
Yeah.
So today I'm Ryan.
I'm Jose.
I'm Marcus.
And I'm Dave.
Yeah. And so do you guys all have the movie on the main menu?
Yes,
yeah.
I do.
Okay, I've been hearing this 30-second snippet of sound for half an hour now.
Yeah, same here.
I know. So, as usual, you're listening to our audio commentary. We're gonna tell you exactly, do a countdown for when you should press play, and then you're gonna be synced with us throughout the movie.
Yeah.
So I hope you enjoy.
All right, Marcus, do you want to do a countdown?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, everyone ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, play.
All right, here we go.
Here we go again. So the good old Dimension logo.
Yeah.
Who knows how long that's going to be in the Hellraiser series?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might be the last time we see it, right?
Yeah.
So when we watched this before, I didn't quite understand. Maybe this conversation, the volume was too low, but it's like, wait, what are they talking about? Are they saying that the puzzle box is obsolete?
Yeah.
It was weird. It's like, okay, well, that's a strange way to start out the movie, to say like, yeah, forget all that crap that we did in the last 9 movies.
Yeah, they're making a point that technology has kind of changed the way people pursue sin, so they need something different to entice them than the puzzle box.
Right, so their technological upgrade is putting a letter in the mail.
Yeah. Going door to door.
Hey, hell is a slow adopter, okay? Baby steps. They go from like a box to a typewriter now.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, that doesn't seem to be particularly advanced.
This guy seems like he's one step away from being homeless, and like let's pick on the homeless.
Well, he lives in Heather Langenkamp's basement, so
yeah, he's paying rent.
Yeah, his place is pretty squalid. But then I guess he's a child murderer and
molester and all that.
Yeah,
living in the shadow of society.
Yeah.
So kind of a '90s aesthetic here in this letter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, and everybody online is comparing it to 7, but 7 was about the 7 deadly sins, and this is like the 10 commandments?
Yeah, the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's weird that they really focus on that 55 Ludovico Street. It's like, yes, we get it. It's a
Yeah, they
reference,
show it on like every device and
Yeah.
everything.
It's a reference to Hellraiser. Okay.
I actually, I thought it was entertaining that they went there and they turned 55 Ludovico Street into like this place that shows up now every once in a while to entice people. Like the whole house became like this thing that appears.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's its own portal now.
Yeah, you walk into the house and you're in another dimension, and it's like every town has an Elm Street.
Yeah. And the house always plays for Elise.
Yeah.
So this movie was filmed in Oklahoma City and Guthrie, Oklahoma. So those were the locations for this movie.
Yeah, and it actually takes place in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for me, I think that the 7 thing is more to do with the filters and the coloring they use.
Yeah.
A lot of like greens and yellows and blacks.
I have to say that I like the auditor. He's the auditor, right? The guy asking the questions. I get him confused with the guy who eats the.
No, that's the assessor.
That's the assessor.
Okay.
Yeah, the auditor is by far the most interesting and well-developed character in the film, which, I mean, is kind of a shame because he spends so much time with the detectives, and you know, the auditor is the most well-develed character.
His faction, I like all of them except I think the women.
The jury.
Yeah, the jury.
Yeah.
I'm not a big. I don't know. They just seem like maybe they weren't actors. I don't know.
Yeah. The auditor is a little over the top as well too. Or, I'm sorry, the assessor.
Oh yeah.
When he's like children's tears.
Yeah, right.
He literally chews the scenery.
Yes, right.
I wasn't expecting much for this one, to be honest. I'm not the Hellraiser fan I once was, and I don't mean the original film when I say this. I'm talking about the franchise as a whole.
Yeah.
I've been disappointed time and time again with each diminishing sequel until I finally said it. I'm done with Hellraiser. And but with this movie, I went into it without any baggage from the previous movies, so I really wanted to give it a chance. And despite thinking some scenes weren't that much to my liking, I actually found myself enjoying this more than the last 3 or 4 sequels, which was very surprising.
There was actual effort put into the editing and the cinematography of this. Like, I love that scene whenever he types and they show all the mechanics and the ink going through the tube. And it doesn't make any sense for a typewriter, but it's cool.
Well, the ink is meant to be blood, right? Because it pumps blood from the person. It's typing in blood. So,
and that's how the assessor can tell whether they're, he can process the information to give it to the jury for them to make the decision.
I didn't realize that because it looked black. It's not. I mean, I thought.
Yeah, I think it's just the filters and the coloring.
The yellow filter. So Rob, who couldn't be with us due to technical issues with Skype today, he actually got a really interesting interview with Gary Tunnicliffe.
Yes.
And in it, Gary Tunnicliffe said that yes, the yellow filter is kind of like attached to this faction of hell with the auditor and the assessor and the jury and the butcher. And then the blue filter is reserved for the scenes with Pinhead.
Yeah.
So it was a visual way of like,
distinguishing them.
Distinguishing them, yes.
Yeah, separating the different factions visually.
Here's the assessor, like you said, super over the top performance.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and he doesn't look like. I mean, he just looks like a crazy guy. He doesn't look like any kind of a demon or Cenobite.
He's just overweight.
He forgot to wear a shirt.
Yeah.
Tears of children.
Yeah, I was kind of all in until that moment. That kind of snapped me out of the movie.
Well, and he only explains it to this guy because he's explaining it to the audience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And he doesn't explain it to any other people that go in front of him.
The assessor actually is I think this is a reference to an actual concept. Well, not a concept, but in certain cultures there is what's called a sin eater. A sin eater was a person who used a ritual to consume and magically take on the sins of a person. they would do that in certain cultures. When someone died, they would put some fruit over the coffin or the dead person overnight, and then the next morning the scene eater would arrive and consume the fruit, and in that sense they would incorporate the sins of the dead person so they could go into heaven. Obviously that's not what's happening here, but I think it's kind of similar in a way that he's consuming the sins, and then obviously this sin is this part is really nasty. But you know what? Although this may not be to a lot of people's liking, I think that this is Gary Tunnicliffe taking some chances visually, and it's like it's something not many people would put in their movie, right? And even he admitted that 2 or 3 members of the cast that were on set had to escape to go vomit after filming this shot because some people can't see stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's also the first time ever that a Hellraiser sequel was better than the one before it, right? As far as I can remember.
Yeah, it's definitely better than the last 3.
Although, I mean, I personally think 6 is better than 5, but that's just, a lot of people don't agree, so I don't know.
So here's the jury.
Yeah.
3 beautiful women without faces in black thongs. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I mean, they really only have makeup on their faces, and it's like, oh, you put your hands in the vomit, and then you get the verdict. Everybody knows that. Yeah.
My fear.
I wonder if there would ever be a verdict of innocent, and how would that work?
What were you saying, Marcus?
Oh, my fear when first watching this was that they were going to consume the vomit, like audition style. That was my fear.
I was a little bit afraid of that, too.
Different kind of movie, but that still does happen in movies.
Yeah. I really enjoyed when the auditor said, I don't think we mentioned this a while ago, but when he said, Jesus Christ, and the guy says, oh, same city, completely different zip code. I thought that was a great line. And also the scene where he says that he deals with pain as currency, and I can give you some if you'd like. And then he grabs the shaving blade.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really, really cool. And of course, Gary Tunnicliffe is the auditor here. So
yes, he is.
Makeup.
So this woman is not one of the faceless jury. She's something else. And all these cleaners, they're not the jury either. They're a whole different set of... Yeah. It seems like this is a really, really elaborate process with a lot of sort of middlemen.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a job, man.
Yeah.
Got to keep that economy in hell going.
Even the butcher, the surgeon or whatever, it's a combination of 2 people.
And here's the second shot we see of Pinhead in the movie. And poor Pinhead, he spends all his day just looking at a blank wall.
He's and he's on the sidelines for most of it. Yeah.
He's just kind of sitting there brooding.
I really like this guy. I like the butcher, even though in the trailer and in the photos and stuff I didn't like him. But I like him in the actual execution in the movie.
Yeah.
It's so kind of weird and like a bad dream.
Yeah. Almost like oh, sorry, go ahead, Jose.
No, go.
I was going to say it's almost like sleep paralysis. I forget the painter, but it reminds me of the Nightmare painting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
With the little demon crawling on top of you, and you can't move. So
yeah, so the people think that there's like a demon sitting on their chest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Talking about the Goya painting?
Is it Goya? It might be.
Yeah, there's a woman dreaming, and there's a little demon on her chest.
Yeah, and there's like a horse behind the curtain in the back. Yes.
That's the sleep of reason produces monsters.
Yes. Thank you.
There was an extended version of this scene in the outtakes or in the special features, and I watched it and it looked exactly the same. I couldn't figure out.
I didn't notice a difference.
Yeah. I didn't see any difference, and it must have been just like seconds of something or split seconds.
Yeah.
So this scene was recorded at 300 frames per second, and Gary Tunnicliffe says he really enjoys looking at the fluid dynamics. This is a
Yeah,
great
so
shot.
I'm guessing that's kind of an allude to Elizabeth Bathory, but I don't understand its context in the whole
Yeah.
processing of what they're doing.
It's really kind of elaborate way of everybody gets to enjoy the sins, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do like
Different
these
ways.
opening credits.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, it was the best part of
burning
the movie.
the parchment. Yeah.
I think the music is a little generic for me.
Yeah.
So I enjoy this this intro. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that was it.
Yeah, the music. He also talked about the music with Rob in our interview. He said that. Where is it?
I'm a little bummed that Rob couldn't make it. I mean that.
Yeah,
I know.
Me too.
Yeah.
Skype has changed just recently to make it really difficult to get. It took us half an hour, right? And David, you were saying earlier that you were having equal problems.
Yeah. It's almost like Microsoft doesn't want you to use it now.
Yeah.
So Ryan, I'm sorry I interrupted you. I was just going to bring up the interview that Rob did with Gary Tunnicliffe, where he said the soundtrack was created by Darren Johnson, who, on a shoestring budget, has done miracles. The music is very much inspired by Trent Reznor's Seven vibe, which is something Bob Weinstein really pushed for and I embraced. I adore Christopher Young's music. My original cut was done to all Christopher's cues, but we couldn't afford him or those pieces. So rather than do a poor orchestral score, a more modern score was decided upon. Darren knocked it out of the park, and it really suits the style of film.
Interesting.
The first time that they did that was in Hellraiser 3, right? When they did a rock score.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
With Motorhead.
Yeah. This score is very industrial, and I was wondering if that was to pay homage to Coil and the original score that was done for Hellraiser. I wasn't sure.
So it sounds like they said an homage to Seven, but I don't remember the music.
Yeah, it sounds more Nine Inch Nails than Coil for sure. Coil's a bit more noise rock.
Okay.
So I don't really see this expansion of Hell's Factions as canonical for me, though, in terms of what Clive Barker has created. But I do tend to keep the different mediums separated continuity-wise, comics, books, film. So for me, it's not a big problem that Gary seems to have created his own faction of Cenobites.
Well, even within the franchise, nobody can seem to agree about what the rules are for Hellraiser. Other than you open the box and Pinhead comes. Sometimes you just have to touch it.
Yeah. And the thing is, I mean, it's the same thing with Friday the 13th. I mean, how many different ways have we seen Jason having explanations for his past and things changing and the way he comes back? So it's not just Hellraiser, it's all the franchises that live this long.
And I have to say, hopefully everybody that's seen this movie has seen this movie already, but I have to say that this character and her being punished for her sins, it's like she worships her dog. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's a little loose.
This guy, and we find out who it is.
The Preceptor.
The Preceptor. His reasoning for killing these people is a real stretch sometimes.
Yeah.
All I can think about is the Preceptor from the Transformer cartoons.
The microscope guy. Nobody wanted the microscope or the ambulance.
I know. I always wanted Soundwave.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, this opening scene is, like you said, it doesn't make a lot of sense about the I am a jealous God, and it's going to be you shall not worship other gods before me. And it's like, I don't think she worshipped her dog as like a god.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
I mean, come on.
That's a bit of a stretch for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is a bit of a stretch. But I like that. I like the whole, set decoration and all that. And I just want to commend art director Sam Howeth for this movie, and the costume designer Jack Odell for their work with the Cenobite costumes and the set decoration, because pretty good. I mean, all those candles in that apartment, that looked pretty nice.
I don't like this cop in the passenger seat. The actor.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's the weakest actor in this movie.
And his character doesn't seem to fit with all the other characters and where the plot progression goes.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that from the trailer, I had thought that maybe that blonde lady was the other cop or something, because everything kind of went so fast and there were so many characters.
Yeah,
But the actual female cop that's in this, I like her. I think she's good.
Detective Edgerton.
Yeah.
Yeah, with him, I honestly thought for a second there maybe he was going to be like part of his personality, the other detectives,
Yeah.
like he wasn't actually there.
Yeah, right.
Oh no.
Yeah. And it's also really hard. You have to keep reminding yourself that those two cops are brothers because they're nothing alike.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't look the same. They're aged. He looks like he's like 15 years older than that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea was to make them seem so polar opposite. You know, one is the pretty boy who's always wearing these super expensive fancy clothes, while the other brother is just wearing the same clothes throughout the whole movie, pretty much.
Yeah,
he's wearing that leather jacket in every scene, and
even after his clothes get ripped to shreds, he still manages to get the same clothes in the next shot.
Yeah.
And then Edgerton popping out from the shadows at a crime scene.
It's like, where are all the photographers? I mean, are they the first ones on the scene? That's I don't think so, right? Because someone called it in.
Yeah, they have lights set up and everything for the crime scene.
Every single time anybody called in backup or called cops, they never show up.
Yeah. I figured they couldn't afford more extras, probably.
It's a budget thing,
yeah. I mean,
they just should have had the PAs or whatever go out there and pretend to be, the crime scene investigators.
Yeah.
Even Heather Langenkamp is only in it for 15 seconds on screen.
Yeah.
And then,
I was surprised by how small that was.
Yeah.
And yet she's the one that spoiled this whole movie to the public.
Yeah. Well, and
she didn't spoil. She announced it. Yeah, that it was being made.
Yeah, she didn't. She apparently didn't read the non-disclosure agreement that everybody else had.
Okay, I gotta say this scene here is messed up, and it's messed up that nobody would have noticed that there was a live dog inside that stomach, and it's messed up that the dog would still be alive.
Yeah, the dog wouldn't be alive.
Of course, yeah. So that is nuts. I think this might be one of the scenes that allegedly one of the cast members kind of almost fainted because they thought it was too much.
I thought it was the lady who played the angel being
was
strung up.
she?
I don't know.
And the dog was traumatized.
Yeah. Never to be the same again.
Oh yeah, right. That's right. And the dog was. I didn't put that together. I guess this is the dog, of course.
So the quick synopsis for the movie is that detectives Sean and David Carter are on the case to hunt down a gruesome serial killer, the Preceptor, who is terrorizing the city by killing people based on the Ten Commandments. Joining forces with Detective Christine Edgerton, they dig deeper into a maze of horror which may lead them into the depths of hell. So some people complained about the whole murder mystery being a little too beat by beat, like too much on, first review I've read of this was someone on my friend list that got the DVD before I did, and they were like, oh, I could tell what this was going 15 minutes in. And I was like, I didn't really. I mean, maybe halfway through the movie, I kind of had some things that I was like, maybe I know who the Preceptor is, but I can't say it was like that clear to me right off the bat. So I don't know if you guys were like seeing where this was going.
I figured this one out pretty early, mainly because I'm a big fan of giallo, and this kind of follows like a stereotypical like giallo from like the 70s, late 70s. It's not very clever because they throw so many red herrings that the obvious person is kind of right there in your face because they're throwing all these other curveballs at you.
You're getting an orgy of things about, he went to the war, he might have PTSD, he's kind of messed up, he's like the loose cannon guy, so
this scene right here made me laugh pretty hard. It's just a really awkward happy birthday to me.
But it's pretty realistic, I think. I thought this was done well. It's not like a super hysteric scene or whatever. It's more like, hey, just disappointed, going to bed.
Yeah.
Yes. Speaking for myself, I guess we've all been there with someone that we love, forgot something, and it's like, this is kind of how it goes.
I don't know, if they had that reaction, I would find it hard to not laugh. The happy birthday to me line. And then I'd be even further in the doghouse.
Yeah.
And this, I have to say that this looks like a production trailer where that's supposed to be their office.
Yeah.
It doesn't look connected to a building. You never see them coming in or out because it's not, it's not an office. It's not really doesn't really look like an office in a building.
So here are some notes that Rob has been sending us while we're doing this, since he's not part of the call for technical reasons. But he said, here's some notes I was going to use. Maybe you can use them. I got them from Gary Tunnicliffe. And he says, oh, the vomit. It was the usual. I've made vomit for so many movies over the years, and honestly, I usually just raid the craft services table. Usually start with some warm water, brush up some cookies, some oatmeal, as long as it is set for a while, splash of milk for opacity, a little smushed up tomato. Oh, man. You don't want too many things that will just break down. You want a variety of things, some that will hold the shape for really yucky-looking vomit. Really, whatever comes to hand until I get a color and consistency I like.
I can see why that would make people gag.
And Mark, you were afraid that the jury was originally going to drink the vomit and said, interesting note here, the jury were originally supposed to drink the vomit. The tub was going to feed down from the ceiling, and they would drink from it like baby birds fed by their mother. Producers nixed that idea pretty early.
So that's one of the things that he said, oh, people are going to get mad at me because they made me make changes in the script. It's like, I'm not mad that they...
I don't want to see that. Stop that.
Yeah, seeing that in audition was traumatizing enough.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that the door only says detectives?
Yes.
Yeah.
Generic. So I have to ask. I have to ask this: Is Hellraiser too damaged for the fans at this point to accept a sequel? I mean, is a significant portion of the fans too jaded to accept Judgment or give it a chance?
They're really divided, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that are just like, no Doug Bradley, no Hellraiser. It doesn't even matter if Doug Bradley would ever agree to do another Hellraiser movie.
Yeah. I will say I am surprised by how many people are coming out and saying that they absolutely loved it and are hoping for a sequel to this film.
Yeah. Well, and the bar over all these years, the bar has been
the bar is so low
that it's like, you get this one, and all they had to do was have some weird, interesting scenes and some new characters that are kind of crazy, and it's like, that's enough to make it interesting.
It pretty much just had to be better than Revelations.
Yes. Yeah. Which is like a student film or would be better.
You saw that scene where the killer was using a hacksaw to saw some body parts. Yeah. He was listening to this tape in the background, and that scene, I don't know if this was intentional or if I'm just projecting, but it reminded me of the Hellbound Heart. There was a part where Kirsty can hear this preacher in the distance, like on the radio, says, every day, every night, the devil is watching, when she's running away with the box at the end of Hellbound Heart. And the engineer gives her the box and she walks away. Yeah. I think, is it in the Hellbound Heart, or was that in an actual script draft of Hellraiser? Now I'm kind of confused. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? There's supposed to be a preacher on the radio playing in the background in a scene with the box that it would say every day, every night, the devil is watching. And I'll have to get back to that.
Yeah. I recall reading that, but I don't think that was in Hellbound Heart.
Yeah, it was probably in a draft of the Hellraiser script.
When I saw this scene, I started to think this is a little too much for a real, serial killer.
Yeah.
Right? Because, why are there only these 3 people here when this is what is that? 3 people died?
Yeah.
4?
Yeah. That was my problem with this scene, is that being at a children's park or with that many people dead, the entire park would have been swarmed with police.
Yeah. There would be news out there. And
For me, the part of the scene that I think is a little comical is that, first of all, they go there and they see that altar with severed hands. Okay. And jars full of blood. And then they only say, fuck me, when they open up one of the hand and see an eye. And I'm like, dude, I would say that immediately upon looking at that thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not like, that scene sort of started to make me feel like, oh, are they in hell the whole time? You know, just like all these other Hellraiser sequels, because it's got this weird sort of, you know, they're all disconnected from reality. There's no other people
kind of
around.
an otherworldly aspect to it.
But it's really just the budget.
Yeah, yeah, really.
Now
I think...
Oh, go ahead, David.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the follow-up scene that they showed of Pinhead sitting there, that really reminds me of Gary Tunnicliffe's short film No More Souls.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes,
Just,
right. Him sitting on his throne.
Yeah, they've shown that shot a few times, and every single time I see it, that's what I really think about is that short film.
Mm-hmm. But I was going to say, one of the things that I think would have made this film stronger from script-wise is that with every time they have a killing and it's, you know, for a biblical reason, they have to mansplain it to the audience as they're doing it. And I just feel like those would be stronger and more powerful if it was kind of like, oh, well, what does that have in context? And it would cause you to do a little bit of research or something versus just having it laid out there.
Yeah.
And here's Heather Langenkamp in her only cameo in the whole movie. So
yeah, they really
for 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And her clearly knowing that they were doing some awful things to children in there, but she let it happen as long as they paid the rent.
Should have put a boiler room in there.
Yeah, I like the clowns there, the kind of nod to Gacy.
Yeah, John Wayne Gacy, yeah.
And I also think that the name for the serial killer, the Preceptor, is kind of lame because they had to... Because it sounds like Perceptor when they pronounce it, so they had to say it several times and show it in print, so that people would know it's not Perceptor, it's Preceptor.
Yeah, and they say it both ways. They go back and forth.
Well,
yeah.
I have a thing about the name, which is it seems like Gary went backwards when he was coming up with a murder mystery, and so the last twist is where they're going to figure out why it's called Perceptor. That it's connected to Ecclesiastes and all that. And but how do they? So where does the name Preceptor come from? Because it seems like they come to this point of epiphany at the end. But it's like, did he sign his letters as the Preceptor?
Yeah,
So
because with
that?
every killing, he submitted a letter to the police.
They're like the Zodiac.
Yeah. But I mean, this is 14 people now that he's killed, and they haven't caught the person, or like figured out that it's the detector. You know, it's just it's so bizarre.
So again, I don't think anyone expected the masterpiece. I mean, IMDb lists the approximate budget for this film at $500,000, even though Gary Tunnicliffe has said in an email that the budget was $350,000. So for that budget, I think it looks pretty good. I mean, all I needed from this movie was to entertain me for 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it did that for me.
Yeah.
This scene was really funny because he calls off screen to Heather Langenkamp's character, you know, saying like, thanks for letting me in or whatever. But it's like they couldn't hire her for the next day to be in the shot with him for this scene.
And why does that, when he opens up the laptop and it's a porn website for underage children, why do you have to be 18 and older to access it? I mean, it's illegal either way.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, God, that's a good catch, man. Yeah. So there you go. And I was happy that the detective who's, you know, investigating the murder site is not actually, okay, I don't know if we should go into spoilers, but if, probably not.
I was not, I didn't know it was him because, you know, here in my notes, I wrote, "Oh, now it's time for the third wheel to get murdered." You know, that's what I thought was going to happen, and then those two would come together to investigate his murder, and that.
What I was going to
say
though, typical
plot, and that's not what happened.
Yeah, what I was going to say though, it's that it makes sense for him to actually be investigating this because he discovers that there's a connection there that he's not expecting.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, he's investigating this murder mystery and then it turns out it's going to be him or whatever. Then why is he investigating, right? In this case, there's a reason why he's investigating that lead.
And why he's doing 90s dumb cop and not telling his coworker.
Yeah, so there's an actual reason for that, too.
I really like this interaction here.
Yeah, this is like one of my favorite scenes. I think they do a great job of illustrating the separate faction and also why the detective is the way that he is.
Yeah.
So why do you guys think that the not the auditor, the other guy, he chokes on his confessions? I mean,
upon first watching it, I thought it was because he was innocent, and so that's what I thought happened
That's what I thought
to the assessor when they consume innocence. But
he's too
they
evil.
Explain it at the end.
Yeah, it's the opposite.
Yeah,
skill.
well, and how can he be too evil for these? I mean, that part I don't. He kills a bunch of people and he does it in a brutal, sickening way. But it's like they should have, I think.
Hey, maybe you didn't expect it. I mean, you can enjoy spicy food, but if I give you something saying it's mild and I put ghost pepper in it, you're probably going to choke on it.
Interesting analogy.
Plus also, I mean, this is kind of spoiler, but I'm assuming that everybody that's listening to this has seen it.
Yeah.
Is that he's divine inspiration, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not just normal. He's part of a higher plan. Yeah, it's all part of a intertwined plan. So
okay.
So do you think that that God or the angel put him up to this, or do you think it's just his PTSD and he's a crazy person?
I think they put him up to it,
and they're just happy that he's doing it.
Yeah, I think it's part of the plan.
Yeah. They're not condoning it, but they're letting him do it because it suits their purposes. Yeah. I mean, it's the actual literal, like, God writes straight and crooked lines.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
I think that would have been, I mean, I guess you understood it right away, but I think for me it would have been clearer that was his blood if they had actually shown a tube hooked up to his arm somewhere.
Yeah.
For the auditor's makeup, it reminds me of what Gary did for Project Angel when the Hellraiser reboot was first being kicked around.
Yeah, it totally does.
Just minus the pins in the intersections.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, very
it's
true.
It's not orderly like it's like the Cenobites. It looks kind of random and painful.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of the criticism was when that came out, and Clive said the same thing.
I've always had this problem before I read the Scarlet Gospels, and to some extent I still do, with the whole idea of sin creeping into the mythology of Hellraiser and how the Cenobites operate according to that concept. I mean, how can one be an explorer in the further regions of experience when sin is something that fixates you inside the strict code of moral conduct, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sin and damnation shouldn't really have a place in the Hellraiser movies. I mean, in my view.
It was about... It was kind of like a curiosity kills the cat sort of a thing. It was an obsession. If you're obsessed enough to actually track the box down and open it, then you're beyond redemption, and you're gonna be caught. And
yeah, I always thought it was more about transcendence, transcending the limits of your flesh, transcending the limits of desire.
And I think that's kind of what kind of frustrates me watching this movie with the faction and the Cenobites seeking out people, because in the past in Hellraiser mythology, it's their desire that brings them there, and it's not necessarily death that is the result.
Yeah, it's the Faustian bargain in that.
Yeah.
You search for it, so you bring it upon yourself instead of here they come to you, but they bring it upon you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that they did a montage, so that you don't actually hear all of his sins. You only hear up to like Vietnam, and then they kind of montage the rest of it so they can keep the mystery going. And but it's several pages. It's looks like 10 pages or something of.
Yeah.
So I mean, sin and damnation really wasn't mentioned in Hellraiser franchise until I think Hellraiser 5 Inferno, which is a movie that was directed by, I think, kind of a very religious director, Scott Derrickson, who grew up, according to his own words, as a fundamentalist Christian, and who still believes that his Christianity should be in his art, that he should integrate that faith into his work. Mm-hmm. And so that's what he
still does to this day.
Yeah. With Hellraiser 5, he said he wanted to make tabula rasa of everything that came before in the Hellraiser and he wanted to make Hellraiser about sin and damnation. And that's when it kind of crept in here, and then I guess Clive Barker kind of went that way as well with Scarlet Gospels, even though in the Scarlet Gospels, sin and damnation didn't seem to be a big part of that book. So
No, it wasn't. Yeah.
It was still a kind of an alternate dimension. There was still hell. There were still like lost souls in there, but it's not like they were being punished. There was like this hierarchy of demons, and it was very original and stuff, but it didn't really snap on too hard to the Judeo-Christian mythology.
No, there wasn't a judgment aspect to it, really. I mean, it's not like that's where you go when you die.
Right.
And there was another Clive Barker thing that recurs in there where heaven is empty, right, and God is gone somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I saw this, I was like, is this going to be Pinhead or is this going to be something else? And then I was like, I think I know what's going to be here.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a budget shortcut for him to just walk through an open doorway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this reminds me of that scene in Dante's Inferno when Dante and Virgil are trying to get into that demon city. And the demons are all holed up behind the door, and they're saying, "No, we're not opening the door for you. Go away."
Yeah.
And then, they're like, "Well, what do we do now?" And then all of a sudden, you just see this angel walk over this lake of sulfur, like waving his hand in front of his face, like, "Oh, this place stinks." And then he just comes over and with a really bored look, just kind of waves his finger in the door.
I haven't read that since college. I didn't read the other two, though. I didn't read Paradiso and Purgatorio.
Purgatorio. Yeah, I only read half of Purgatorio.
I heard that they were boring, and so I have them, and I just never got around to reading them.
Yeah.
Paradise is a little boring. It is a little boring. That idea of heaven is kind of boring.
Yeah.
Obviously, hell is going to be much more interesting.
Yeah.
I say that because I'm kind of a lost soul myself.
Agreed.
So the introduction of what appears to be that angel, and we're going to learn later that this angel is called Jophiel. Jophiel meant the beauty of God.
But it was Uriel that guarded
Eden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that played really prominently in Weave World.
Yes.
Yes, but in the biblical sense, Jophiel was the one who guarded Eden. And,
really?
He's actually the one who also chases Adam and Eve out of the paradise. So, yep, in the Bible and the Torah, so they mention that.
I was confused a little bit by this scene because she had just told him to let this guy go, and he's just stalling and letting all this stuff happen.
Oh, gross! That part is just so.
I know. Look at that.
Yeah,
it kind of reminded me of the Matrix.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, he's like, I don't know. He's rethinking the $1,500 that he got for this movie.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the cleaners. Actually, I think it's interesting because what do you do to someone before they go to surgery? You have to clean them and scrub them and all that stuff, right? So that makes sense. It's just that the surgeon, I expected him to be a little more subtle, not just bring out those blades and hack away. Yeah. So that's not really surgery, right? That's more like butchery.
But it looks really butcherish, I guess. But he actually really neatly cuts their skin
right.
off.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, it's just theatrical, right?
Yeah. Oh,
but it kind of makes me wonder.
Do I finally get to stand up now and do something?
Yeah.
There's Stitch again. Two Stitches. Am I crazy, or at some point in the movie, the auditor starts talking with kind of like a German accent?
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought near the end, his accent kind of changes a little bit, or maybe it's just my imagination. I don't know.
I thought it was from the beginning.
Okay.
It kind of comes and goes.
Yeah.
So I like Paul's performance, but I don't like what they did to the costume.
Yeah, it just looks like rags with the neck collar and seeing the ribs almost like Candyman.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't particularly like the chest piece. I like the fact that he has kind of like a cape or a mantle now, though. But I don't particularly like the chest piece.
That collar doesn't look right either.
No.
It looks like it's made out of plastic or something.
Yeah, it looks like foam with duct tape on it that was spray painted black.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I also don't. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, but I like the face makeup. I think is done quite well. I was just hoping for something a bit more like that redesign that Clive Barker did, where it was more priestly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, at one point they were supposed to turn Pinhead into like this white-dressed, kind of almost anti-pope kind of thing, with long flowing white robes.
Yeah.
They just never did. So this scene reminds me of Inferno when Detective Thorne goes to meet his friend Nanonan, and he takes him in the car, and he's like, "I got to take you somewhere." He's like, "What's going on? What's going on?"
Yeah.
And they're just talking inside the car.
It was a relief that this didn't really have the same plot as Hellraiser 5.
Yeah.
I mean, all their description was almost the same.
Yeah.
I don't think there was any real reason for these characters to be brothers either. I mean, other than just saving time coming up with a name, you know.
I guess to make the final sin that much more powerful, I guess.
Yeah.
And
so, David,
do we ever hear their first names? I don't remember either of their first names.
Sean and David?
Oh.
I think they do, yeah. So, David, you were talking about the makeup, and as you wanted him to like redesign it a little bit. He didn't redesign it too much, but he did change it. Gary said to Rob in an interview, "I sculpted it myself. Obviously, there was no way I would not do the classic look. That design, courtesy of Clive and in no small measure Jeff Portis, is perfect. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's an indestructible design. But I did do a few small things. The cuts are much deeper and more like blade slices. The pins are slightly longer and silver. There was a square removed from the corner of the jaw on each side to make it a little less pin heavy, and a floating square at the back of the head, and we removed the wire pulls on the back. Pretty subtle stuff, but I wanted Paul to have his own makeup, hence the reason we changed his costume a little. Also, we altered the box in this version. It's bleached wood with a copper etching."
Yeah.
And you could see that in the car when he was driving.
Yeah. The box definitely looked. It also looked like there were different versions of the box on that mantle.
Yeah. Yeah. They all looked like instead of having the brass, some of them looked like they were kind of burned or scorched.
Yeah.
And one of them looked like solid metal.
Yeah. Which that one kind of reminds me of the one from the Hellbound Heart, how it was like more of a smooth, reflective metal.
Yeah.
Black. It was supposed to be black lacquered faces.
Yeah.
Having vodka.
These characters also really love to be in candlelight as well. There's so many scenes where there's just candles lit.
Right.
Fire hazards galore.
Yeah.
So another thing that Gary told Rob, and he has it in his notes here, is that they had to cut back on the cleaners a lot. It was supposed to be 3 70-plus withered and haggard old ladies, something akin to the woman in room 237 in The Shining. And obviously, it was supposed to be a lot more extreme. I was hoping to shoot something that would have audiences leaving the room. Yeah. Also, they didn't want to see the skin of Watkins being cut into page-sized pieces, washed, dried, and handed off to the auditor. There was lots of bits and details they thought were indulgent, and they wanted the story to move on. The scene at the end where Sean explains himself and his actions was much longer, but they said it was way too preachy.
You know, and I think one mistake of this movie is they do spend too much time with the police. And it's really hard to care about them trying to solve the crime.
Yeah.
Something here I don't think works very well is that Chatter's teeth are not really chattering.
Yeah, they don't really move.
They
put the sound in, but it's not really moving.
And where are they pouring this? Is that supposed to be on his eyes?
Yeah.
Like hot oil or something?
Yeah.
Hot saliva.
Boiling spit.
Yeah. He says that wasn't the same as my Vietnam flashback dreams.
I don't think he went to Vietnam though. He might have gone to Iraq or something.
Right. Yeah, he's not old enough for that.
So another thing that Gary said was the bigger story issues I faced problems with were the religious concepts, not so much from Dimension, but from some people within the production with some pretty firm Christian beliefs and their reaction to a story in which God not only allows for sin, but God also ordains it in order to make the flock more obedient. Really didn't sit well. Whereas to me, that was the what if that made the story different and interesting.
Well, he did try to shoot it in the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
Yeah. This never happens in the middle of the night. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, especially after you had like a nightmare like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, he wouldn't.
Probably going to go for a glass of water and maybe like turn on the lights or something, but
Cry a little.
cry a little. Cry softly
Yeah.
into your pillow. It's okay.
See, and now we get the scenes here with the Dutch angles. It's
Here
kind of
come
odd
the-
because they didn't
Oh,
do
yeah.
it before.
And here come the Cenobite Cowboys now.
Yeah.
Is it?
That
No,
must-
I'm just joking.
Yeah, that tilted angle, is that just because he's drunk?
I
Well,
think so. I think that's what they're trying to get at.
They do the
Yeah.
tilted angle frequently, actually. There's a couple scenes where like the car will be driving on the road and the camera will be kind of tilted on the ground. So
Yeah,
I guess I
shaky
just didn't
cam.
notice as much. I know that notice a lot of shaky cam. They use a lot of handheld, but
yeah.
I like this. This is cool. It's supposed to be the derelict, the hobo.
Yeah. That is by far, for me, the worst makeup in the film.
Oh,
Yeah.
The skinned man.
Yeah.
yeah, they just didn't have someone thin enough.
Thin enough, yeah.
To
The
wear
actor's
that.
far too bulky.
Yeah.
I got our coffees out of a bus.
That happen to have almond milk. That's hard to find.
Yeah.
So Gary said that they edited the movie in 3 weeks.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and there were 3 or 4 drafts and a couple of polishes, and it was locked before they shot. There was no way they could have done this without a locked script.
There's a lot of scenes like this with the slow talking, with all the 3, investigators.
Mhm.
And
This
yet it's still only like 80 minutes, right? 82
Yeah.
or something like that.
Here's something
Yeah.
interesting. Gary called this other faction of hell the Stygian Inquisition.
I
Huh.
wonder why I didn't use the name in the film. That would have been interesting
Yeah.
to make that
Yes.
official canon like that.
And I think fans would have appreciated something like that too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I know I would have
It
for
seems
sure.
like Gary had a lot of backstory done for this.
Yeah.
It says Pinhead hasn't joined the faction of the Stygian Inquisition. I think the Auditor and the others are a machine processing the guilty, although in the bigger picture and in earlier drafts, everyone is guilty, even a baby since it is born of sin. I think Pinhead is just high ranking and aside from the Order of the Gash has other duties in my twisted version, and overseeing the division is part of it.
Okay.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
But Pinhead doesn't seem super busy either.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of time on his hands.
Yeah.
I guess we still kind of get the Inquisition feel, though, because the nightmare with them putting the mask on him and then pouring the liquid, that almost reminded me of like medieval torture or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
And even the shame masks they would put on people.
Yes.
I once saw a exhibit of medieval torture devices, and some really weird things, man. I mean, there were these masks that were attached to people's heads, and then they were supposed to walk around with them for months on end. And it's like that couldn't be comfortable. They had to suffer horribly from that stuff because that was heavy, and things that would screw open and they would stick it in human orifices and start unscrewing it, and just horrible horrible things.
Yeah. So with that gate, do you think they had to build that lock onto it because it had new wood on it?
Maybe. How did he know where to find his brother? I mean, he just got a call from his sister-in-law, and then he goes immediately to the same alley where he was and just slaps him awake. I mean, I wonder how he discovered that he was there.
It seems like something that was in the script got cut out of the movie.
Yeah.
But it's so weird that he's obsessed with Tale of Two Cities because it seems like something the younger brother would be more interested in reading.
Yeah, you think so.
Yeah.
Also, nobody talks like this. Only God will judge me. God will judge the just and the wicked man. It's like nobody talks like that.
If somebody says something like that to you, you're going to question their sanity.
It has a meaning. It has a meaning. So, yeah, this was when I figured out what was going on. This was when I figured out, okay, I get it now. That I get who the killer is. That was this moment here.
Yeah, well, but one of the red herrings is that woman thought that, or the Edgerton thought that he was, she's there to make sure that he's okay because they thought he might be getting too close to, getting too deep into the case.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like a psychologist or more like internal affairs?
Yeah,
I think internal affairs. Because I think that's kind of what they were alluding to, is that it seemed like they were dragging their feet. Yeah. I mean, 14 dead people. I mean, they should have a huge team on that.
Yeah, I know.
Right. I can't help wondering if images like the helicopter shot from above the city and this overpass here or this turnpike or whatever it is, I can't help but wonder if this is stock footage that they bought for the movie.
Could be drones. You can get that.
I was thinking
pretty
drones.
cheap.
Yeah,
because it's also more less. It's not a processed shot of HD, which usually happens when you use drones in that capacity.
Yeah, like the final shot in the film as well looks like it was from a drone because it rapidly rises into the sky.
Yeah, and it doesn't fit with the cinematography.
It doesn't, and I think that's why it looks so out of place and
it does look weird. It's not like Candyman has that really awesome opening shot over the city. That's just with that music. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
Here it's just like, okay, here's an overhead of the city, and now we're back in this weird little office that seems disconnected from the rest of the.
Yeah.
And drones have really brought down production costs, I guess, because in the old days they would have to rent out a company with a helicopter and go up and shoot from the helicopter and all that stuff. Nowadays, you just get a drone and put it up in the sky.
I mean, I have a drone with a camera that cost me like $60 and it shoots in 1080p. So
there you go.
That's useful.
But my problem with those drone shots is that it makes the film feel smaller, because you see these big expansive shots and then it comes back to these very tight corridors.
Like a TV movie.
Yeah.
God, you know what the worst insert from a GoPro camera was in that movie, The Hobbit, the first movie? Remember the part when they're escaping the elvish prison and they go down the river in those barrels, and there's one shot taken from a GoPro inside a barrel, and it's that one shot. It totally looks like a GoPro shot.
Yeah,
and it's like, why did he put this in the movie?
I heard that if you saw it in the 48 frames per second, it looked fine because it blended with everything else.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I saw it in 48 frames, and the whole movie just looked very soap opera-y. Like,
that's what I heard.
I couldn't enjoy it, and I will never. After that, I said I would never see a movie in that frame rate again. But the funny thing, I just watched The Hobbit last night.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
That was my night last night.
Good timing.
Yeah.
The whole story, or just the first movie?
Just the first movie.
Yeah. I just recently rewatched all 6 of the movies. That's usually my winter pastime.
that barrel scene was so over the top. Oh my God, that went on for like 20 minutes of them popping in and out of barrels. And
that's Peter Jackson, though.
You had to stretch 150 pages into 3 movies.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't know how to edit.
Oh God.
It's okay. He apologized for it afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, "I didn't know what I was doing."
Oh, they should have just made one movie that was like the book.
Yeah, I agree.
And they
Anyway,
had
so
smaller intentions until Guillermo del Toro backed out of it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway, so is this where the third act of the movie begins?
Yeah.
Seems
Yeah.
like-
This is where
seems like
everything
that way
kind
to
of
me.
comes together.
Yeah.
Now
This
they have
big
her wearing.
reveal.
Yeah, and they have her wearing a cross around her neck, and the killer at the beginning was also
Yeah.
wearing a cross, and
Watkins.
I like.
Yeah.
And watching it the first time, I was waiting for that to play somehow into the story, but it just didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I think it's just meant to be there to remind us that there is the presence of God throughout the movie. I don't know. Maybe
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. I was noticing too that lots of the characters, all of them except for the younger brother, right, are wearing a cross.
Yeah.
this guy is so cliche.
Yeah.
It's
This
like the
is
colorful
No,
pathologist.
yeah.
Yeah.
This scene is so it just shouldn't be here because
Yeah.
they mansplain and they flirt and it's just
Wait,
It
are you
just
single?
takes you out of the movie.
yeah.
Yeah, right. We don't know Edgerton well enough, to care about this guy like hitting on her or whatever. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
And who
it could
cares
be
about
worse.
the model of the cell phone?
Yeah.
Could be
Yeah,
worse.
that was
Well, this is
weird
just
too,
because
right?
it's gonna give the location so he can go there and discover. But
Yeah.
he already knows where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been
But
there,
he's
done
with
that.
a detective, so he has to pretend like he does. Right. But it could be worse, David. They could have shown this guy doing the autopsy, listening to Cheeseburger in Paradise.
Oh yeah. Right. Yeah, wearing headphones and eating a hamburger or something while
Yeah,
he's.
they're always eating when they're cutting open the
Yeah.
body.
Yes.
It's not like there's a danger of contamination. or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. But thank God somebody in the office had a cell phone charger so they could charge it up and get the
Yeah.
address.
Yeah.
So serial killer caught by smartphone, and in the beginning, Pinhead is saying that we need to step up our game for this new technology world.
Yeah.
And have you guys installed our app for the Clive Barker podcast? You should.
Nice
Yes.
plug.
Yeah, and actually, I just
Shameless
was asking them why they haven't updated it yet, and they're like, "Oh, they prioritize those by number of downloads." So if you're listening out there,
Oh.
please download the app.
Yeah.
So because the new update will let people do comments like right on the app, which would
Oh,
be
Oh,
nice.
that's cool.
Yeah.
So Gary Tunnicliffe actually retired from 2 Hours in the Dark in 2016. He sold his company, moved to Romania, and according to
Yeah.
someone that commented on our podcast page, is starting in the heavy metal cover band. I don't know if that's true, but it is true that he sold 2 Hours in the Dark in 2016 because I checked it.
I
Wow.
listened to one of the interviews that he did for a podcast, and yeah, he talked heavily about his love for music and just
Was
wanting
that
to focus on that.
Was that the 1 hour with Gary Tunnicliffe that was?
Yeah,
3
but
hours?
it was
It's
3
like
hours
3
long.
hours.
Yeah, yeah.
How did they get that card jack underneath the door like that?
Yeah, right. It was locked shut.
Just
If you
repeat
can
to
get-
yourself, it's just a movie. You should really
Yeah.
just relax.
So if these guys, are investigators, they could have investigated who owned this or who owned or rented this warehouse
Mhm.
before they go into it.
Well, they have to keep the story moving, right? That's why he says, "Hey, I think I hear a struggle in there." She's like,
Yeah.
"I didn't hear anything." He's like,
Yeah.
"Well, you want to go in there? You heard a struggle."
Yeah.
So
Right.
Well, you'd think on her part, wanting to be a good detective, if you just go into a place like that with no search warrant and then you catch the killer can, argue that you went in there without the warrant and he
Yeah.
could possibly, get off. So
Yeah.
but again, that doesn't matter because here the killer's right there.
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I like
Yeah.
for him it makes sense, but for her you'd think she'd be more rational and
So,
logical.
Sure.
Uh,
I'm wondering when he called for backup if he like was punching on his phone, going.
Yeah, I was talking to himself.
Yeah. You're right, guys. I am a great cop.
And I wonder why he covered up the last one.
Yeah.
Dramatic effect for the unveil.
Right, because he didn't expect that they would be headed there that day.
Yeah.
Well, he always took his victims to this place, worked on them, and then put them.
Oh, and then he probably unveiled that to them. Yeah.
So he's almost like Dexter putting on the show for his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he planned to bring both Sean and Allison here to kill them. He just didn't expect to be here with Detective Edgerton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the pathologist said, Lansing, the blonde woman whose doggy ends up inside her womb, she was not killed in the house. She was brought back there, so she was killed here. And we see the killer use the hacksaw on the victims that he put on the children's park.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see that background. Yeah.
So did she tell him where they were going?
She did, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
He explains that at the end. Apparently, he likes